Hi, welcome to this session today on labor and delivery. Ideally, you should be in the third trimester when you are doing this session. Let's take a moment now to think about something. When you open this presentation and you read the words labor and delivery as they are visible in front of you, what was your first thought? Take a moment and be very honest and tell me what was your first thought. You probably thought pain or stress or screaming, shouting, anxiety, something like that. Or maybe some of you even wrote down or thought about happiness, birth of the baby, exciting, a new beginning. However, unfortunately, most women will start with the negative words. This is probably because of the fear of the unknown, and it's also the kind of way that birth has been shown in our movies. Either we see mothers screaming, sweating, and then finally the baby is born, or we see mothers being made a joke of. It's really a comedy. But birth in real life is not like that. Birth is natural, birth is normal, birth is beautiful, and birth is a new beginning. Let's look at it this way. Our bodies are designed to birth. We are women. We have a uterus, we have a vagina. We make babies and we birth babies. God has made us like that. Half the world is women and half the world is having babies. How bad can it be? So many of these mothers will also go back and have more babies. It's really very, very natural. So let's learn a little bit about how birth is and how your labor can treat you. So let's try and learn what labor means. But before we actually get into labor, let me teach you some pre-labor signs. Pre-labor signs can make an appearance approximately 15 days prior to the onset of actual labor. The first thing that you will probably feel are the Braxton Hicks contractions. These are fake contractions, artificial contractions. They are painless, they are very short, and they are sporadic. What it will feel like is that your abdomen tightens and relaxes. Don't worry, these are contractions that the uterus does as an exercise. Most mothers will start feeling this from the 28th week of pregnancy. But towards the end, in the last 15 days, these contractions will become much more frequent. Another thing that you would feel is lightening. As you can see on the picture on your right, the mother's abdomen visibly moves down. This happens because the baby's head now moves into the pelvis. So in the first picture, the baby is high up, and in the second picture, the baby's head has fixed into the pelvis. If you have a great grandmother, she would probably call this lightening or the baby fixing. The other thing that you will probably have is also the softening of the cervix. Now, during pregnancy, your cervix is long, thick, and tightly closed. As labor approaches, your cervix will become shorter and it is going to be much more softer. Your doctor will be able to do a physical examination and determine whether the cervix is getting ready for labor or not. If you start noticing the pre-labor signs as we have listed earlier, then you must remember to report to your doctor immediately. 37th week mark is when we expect that the baby is now full term. If the baby comes before this, the baby might need to be admitted to the NICU, which is not so much fun. We'd rather that you have a healthy full-term baby and go home along with your baby smiling and happy. Here are some signs that you could watch out for in the last 48 hours. Now, I'm not really talking about the expected due date or the EDD as given to you by your doctor. I'm talking about the due date as decided by your baby. Yes, interestingly, your baby decides when it's going to be born. The baby will release certain hormones through the placenta which will signal the mother's brain to start the powerful uterine contractions. One of the first things that you could probably notice is the loss of the mucus plug. If you see a lot of mucus on your underpant, you probably know that the mucus plug, which blocks the cervix, has now fallen. You could also see some bloody discharge, some blood tinged in this mucus. This is called the bloody show. If it's a little bit, just some streaks, it's fairly normal. But if you see a lot of blood, it's considered dangerous. If you experience loose motions, multiple bouts of loose motions, and you are very close to your expected due date, then you probably know that you are in the pre-labor phase. Intense spasmic back pain. Now, back pain is fairly common during pregnancy, but this is a back pain which is like a spasm. It will come, grip your back, and then it will disappear. And then a little later, it's back again. When the pain hits you, you feel that, oh my God, I need to sit down. But once the pain is gone, you feel absolutely normal and comfortable. High energy levels, in spite of all the above, most mothers who are in the pre-labor phase will experience a high burst of energy. They feel like cleaning the house, shopping, maybe cooking some extra food for their family, whatever. But high energy levels are really normal 48 hours prior to labor. Once labor starts, you are going to start experiencing regular contractions. Regular contractions means contractions which come at a regular rhythm. They start coming closer and closer together, and each contraction becomes longer and longer. It's going to feel like period cramps. And as I said, the frequency and the intensity go on increasing. One way to judge whether you're really in labor is by your level of activity. Now listen to this really carefully. Activity increases the intensity. Let me give you an example. If I'm having a contraction and I walk around, walking here is the activity. The intensity of the contraction increases. However, if I'm having a contraction and I walk around and my contraction disappears, then this is a false labor contraction. So if you have a contraction and you do some activity and the intensity increases, you are probably in real and true labor. So great, now you've determined that you're really in labor and it's not a false alarm. The next question to answer is, when shall I go to the hospital? Most doctors will recommend that when your contractions are regular and they are approximately 20 minutes apart is when you should be in the hospital. You should definitely go if your water bag breaks. Your water bag or the amniotic bag is what holds the baby and has a lot of amniotic fluid or water in it. This is your baby's sterile environment. This is also the environment in which your baby breathes. So if your water bag breaks, you must take yourself to the hospital immediately. One word of caution here. The water bag will break and will have amniotic fluid which is transparent, odorless. But if the amniotic fluid has a color or an odor, then you know that you need to go to the hospital in a rush. In the other situation, when the amniotic fluid is clear and odorless, you technically have approximately 24 hours to deliver the baby. Please do go if you or your partner are feeling nervous. If you feel nervous, it's not going to help your labor alone. And also if you feel that your hospital is very far away or there's too much traffic on the road. It's normally recommended that labor progresses well when you are relaxed, and the best place to be relaxed is in your own house. So go if you spot any of the above signs. So what happens next? Now that you've arrived at the hospital, your doctor will check you. The doctor wants to be sure that you are in labor. If you're truly in labor, then you will be admitted. Your vital signs like your blood pressure, your heart rate, your temperature, these are all monitored. And even the baby's heart tones are checked. If everything's all good, labor will be allowed to progress naturally. You will be pretty much left on your own in your room along with your partner, and your doctor and nurses will check on you periodically. Depending on how labor is progressing, internal examinations will be done to determine your progress. When the doctor does an internal examination, the doctor can actually check how far the cervix has progressed. To make it convenient, we divide labor in 3 stages. The first stage of labor is when the cervix will shorten. This is called effacement. Next, the cervix will open to 10 centimeters, which is called dilation. Why 10 centimeters? Because this is what is considered to be the size of the neonate's head. Here are some more images of what the first stage of labor feels like. Again, for convenience, the first stage has also been divided into 3 parts. We call this the initial or the latent phase, which is from 0 to 3 centimeters of dilation. At this point of time, most mothers may not even know that they are in labor. The active phase is considered from 3 to 8 centimeters. Most mothers are well aware that they are in labor at this point of time. And finally, we have the transition phase. This is from 8 to 10 centimeters of dilation. And the major reason why this is called transition is because now you're moving from stage 1 of labor to stage 2 of labor. So let's look at some physical and emotional aspects of the first stage of labor. Let's start with the physical. The first stage of labor for a first-time mom can last anywhere from 12 to 24 hours. You will have regular contractions. Early labor contractions, that means the latent phase contractions, are really short and they are far apart. This is probably why a lot of women don't really notice them. Also, you have a lot of recovery time in between contractions, so you're okay. Later, the contractions become long and strong. At this point, your contractions could be lasting for almost 90 seconds, and there could be only a gap of about 30 to 60 seconds in between contractions. Emotionally, women may not realize that they are in labor in the beginning. When labor is active, they start feeling excitement because now they know that the baby is going to be born. They're also very well able to cope at this point of time. In the later part, that is the transition phase, many women lose control. And this is generally the time when most women will start asking for some kind of pain relief or the other. We'll discuss this a little bit later in this presentation. This is a picture of the second stage of labor. Simply put, the second stage of labor is when the baby leaves the uterus and makes his way through the birth canal into the world outside. So the second stage of labor begins when the cervix is completely open and ends when the baby is out of the birth canal and in your arms. Here's another picture of the second stage of labor. As you can see, the baby's head is getting delivered and the doctor is merely holding and guiding the birth. Once the baby's head has slipped out and the shoulders have passed through, the rest of the baby is just going to slip out. Here are some of the emotional and physical aspects of the second stage of labor. Physically, in the second stage of labor, a mother will feel a strong sensation to bear down and push. A lot of times I'm asked this question, what does this mean? Bear down and push? What will it feel like? Let's put it this way. It feels just like a strong urge to pass a hard bowel. You will be experiencing intense contractions. As the baby's head is crowning or appearing at the vagina, you will feel a burning sensation in the vaginal area. Your contractions will be long and strong. And of course, physically, there's the birth. In the second stage of labor, emotionally, women feel a sudden burst of energy. Remember, in transition, you've lost control and are looking for pain relief, but now there is a sudden burst of energy. This happens primarily because there's excitement at finally reaching the end and meeting the baby. I like to explain it this way. Imagine this. If you are running a race and you cannot see the finish line, what's your energy level? And then you suddenly see the finish line and you get this extra burst of energy and you zoom towards the finish. That's exactly what happens. In the first stage, your cervix is dilating, but you really have no clue what's happening until and unless the doctor updates you. But here, you can feel it. You can actually be a part of the process, and that's where the excitement and the sudden burst of energy would come in. The third stage of labor is the delivery of the placenta. The placenta in the womb is really also called the slave of the baby or the afterbirth. The baby has been delivered. The slave must follow since the master is not there anymore. Or the birth has happened, so the afterbirth must also happen. This is a natural process and can take anywhere from 15 to 30 minutes post the birth. In most cases, uterine contractions will resume and the placenta will naturally separate from the wall of the uterus and deliver. But in some cases, the doctor may have to administer certain medications to help the placenta to deliver. Whatever the situation, the placenta must be delivered because since it's a redundant organ now, it cannot be left in the mother's body. Let's take a look at some of the emotional aspects and physical aspects of the third stage of labor. Emotionally, you will be feeling relief, excitement. Your complete focus is on the baby. You may actually not even realize when this stage passes. But what's happening physically? Remember, I said contractions? So you will probably be feeling mild contractions. The placenta is going to be birthed. The doctor is going to make sure that he checks the uterus. Why is he checking the uterus? The doctor needs to be sure that the entire placenta has been delivered. Your episiotomy is going to be sutured. We're going to talk a little bit about the episiotomy in the next slide. It's time now to talk about some of the terms and some of the procedures that may be done during labor with you. The first in a vaginal birth would be an episiotomy. An episiotomy is a little cut which is given in the perineum. The perineum is the area between the vagina and the rectum. As you can see in this picture, you could have one of these two incisions, the midline or the mediolateral. Now once the episiotomy is done, and the baby is delivered, it's sutured. But the reason the episiotomy is done is because it eases the passage of the baby. It will prevent excessive tearing of the perineum. This decision is that of the doctor. The doctor is going to decide at the time of crowning whether an episiotomy is necessary or not. Regular exercise, especially Kegels, can actually reduce the incidence of episiotomies. So it's a good reason for you to start doing your Kegels on a very regular basis. This is a really common question that a lot of people ask me, epidurals. So let me start with telling you what an epidural is all about. As you can see here, we have a picture of the spinal cord and we have a picture of the epidural space. Epidural is basically an analgesia which is administered in the lower back. What basically happens is that the needle is inserted into the epidural space, which is the space surrounding the spinal cord. This area contains nerves which carry pain sensations to your brain. What we are trying to do with this analgesia is numb these nerves only. So the needle is inserted into the epidural space and the medication is passed through. This is the area of general numbness that you are going to be feeling. From your waist all the way to your hips and a little bit of your thighs. The basic idea is that the uterus is contracting and therefore you are feeling pain. So let's numb this area so you don't feel the pain. Remember, you don't feel the pain, but it doesn't mean that the uterus is not working. The uterus is still working, the contractions are still happening, and the birth will happen irrespective. This is what happens when an epidural needs to be administered. You will be asked to take this position either sitting or lying down in between contractions. Make sure that you do this in between contractions. Otherwise, if you have a spasm of a contraction, you could probably injure yourself with the epidural needle. So the doctor will ask you to round out your back, and then the epidural needle will be inserted into the epidural space. Once the needle is in place, your doctor is next going to pass through a catheter. The catheter is a very fine rubber tube. Once the catheter is in place, the needle is removed. The needle does not need to stay in place. The catheter will be attached to a bulb, and this bulb is what we are going to use to now pass medications to help to numb the area. Remember, epidural effect lasts for about 60 to 90 minutes only, and top-ups are required. It's the same medication which is used even in a cesarean section, just in a slightly higher dose. So now that we've learned what an epidural is and what the effects of an epidural are, the next question that's probably in your mind is, when should I decide? Well, the answer is really simple. See how labor treats you. It's not one formula fits all. There will be a lot of women who will tell you that epidurals are God's gift to laboring women. Not really. Or there will be your mother-in-law and mother and great-grandmothers telling you that, oh no, don't go for anything artificial. These are two ends of the spectrum. You have to make the decision depending on how labor treats you. Let's try natural pain relief first. There is definitely a lot of truth in the fact that natural is the best. And lastly, if labor is long, then you may discuss the same with the doctor at that time. Don't pre-decide, don't book now. No decisions have to be made till you see how labor behaves with you. It is quite possible that you end up in the hospital and the doctor checks you and says, hey, you're 6 centimeters dilated, and you'll probably deliver in the next few hours, and you're still smiling, which means labor is really treating you well. So keep that positive thought and wait to decide on the epidural. Here are some of the reasons why I need you to wait to decide before taking an epidural. Although epidurals don't really have any long-term side effect, they do have some side effects. First and foremost, it does cause some lethargy at the baby's birth. Now, what does this mean? The baby appears a little bit more sleepy, a little bit more limp, and a little bit more slower at birth. But the effect of the epidural is 60 to 90 minutes. So the lethargy effect on the baby is also just about that much. Since it's going to numb you from the waist downwards, including a good portion of your hips and thighs, it makes you immobile. You may have a local infection at the site of the injection, and then you need to treat it with antibiotics after the delivery. Epidurals definitely elevate your blood pressure, and because of this, they need to keep you under a constant monitor. Elevated blood pressure is obviously not even great for your baby. Remember, currently even at your doctor's visits, one of the most important things which is checked is your blood pressure. Epidurals do increase the chances of assisted births. Because mothers have no sensation, they don't feel the urge to push, there is a high probability that they might need some help for the birth. Epidurals can cause a headache post-birth, and the reason they do this is that sometimes the epidural needle, which was going to be inserted into the dural space, which is the space around the spine, is going to puncture into the cerebrospinal fluid. If that happens, the mother will have a headache for approximately 7 to 10 days post the birth. Because of the elevated blood pressure, there is a lot of fluid retention post birth. So, swelling, that is edema in the legs, this is fairly common. Another area where fluid retention happens is in the breasts. Mothers who've taken an epidural report high level of engorgement, that is heaviness in the breast. And we've already discussed engorgement when we've spoken about breastfeeding with you. At times, your doctor might discuss induction with you or during labor augmentation. When labor does not start naturally, your doctor may suggest artificial induction. At this time, you might want to discuss with the doctor if some home remedies would work. If the doctor is agreeable to your trying home remedies, the doctor will also make some suggestions. Some of the natural home remedies include taking castor oil, which you must definitely take only once your doctor gives the green signal, or even indulging in some sex. Hey, that's interesting. The male sperm can actually act as a cervix softener. So, a lot of times women who have gone overdue are recommended to go and have some good old sex. If that doesn't work, the doctor will call you in for a gel application. The gel application may be repeated again, and if that still does not work, the doctor is going to give you an injection of synthetic hormones. Your body produces these hormones naturally, but because labor is not starting, we need to give them to you in the artificial form. The same hormones are given if your contractions are not effective, which means you're in labor, but the cervix is not opening, which means the contractions are not effective. Here the doctor will suggest artificial augmentation. Again, try some natural options. So if you have labor which is slow, you could try moving around, walking, changing positions, and just relaxing yourself. Sometimes some stress relief can actually give a boost to labor as well. We've spoken a lot about the hospital procedures, but yes, let's talk to you a little bit about labor management as well. Stress causes pain. The more relaxed a mom is, there is less stress and hence less pain. The less pain that a mom experiences, the faster labor progresses. Therefore, the best labor management tool is actually stress management. Keep this in mind. The more relaxed you are, the faster your labor will progress. I'm sure you've already read a lot about labor. And I'm sure your books have spoken to you about the first stage, second stage, third stage, physical signs, emotional signs, etc. There's just a lot of material out there. But have your books taught you magic tricks to manage labor? Well, that's what I'm here for. I'm going to teach you some magic tricks which will help you to manage labor. I'm not saying that these will work 100%, but I've seen them work like magic in a lot of women. So here, let's go. Let's try and see which magic tricks will work for you during your labor. I know looking at this slide, you probably want to scream at me and throw your mouse at me as well. But well, this is one of the strongest magic tricks that I can teach you. Avoid screaming. I'm going to ask you to do one little fun exercise with me. Okay? Just do this with me, don't cheat, because this will really convince you about what I am trying to explain. Sit back, just relax, let your body go completely loose and limp. Are you absolutely comfortable and flaccid? Put a smile on your face, keep your eyes closed, and now think about your pelvis, think about your vagina. Does it feel really nice, loose, relaxed, and open? Okay, now the next thing you're going to do is put a frown on your face. Just frown. Make a grumpy look. There you go. And now think about your pelvis and your vagina. Does it feel that it's tightened up just a little bit? Okay, and now for the third step in this little exercise. You're going to scream loudly, just like this. Ah! Did you do that? And while screaming, think about what your pelvis and vagina feel like. Did it tighten just a little bit more? There you go. Your jaw muscles are actually related to your vaginal muscles as well. And now think about this. Here you have a baby which is trying to make its way out, but you are screaming, so you're tightening up the vagina, so the baby finds it difficult to move out. So the simple trick is avoid screaming. How easy is that? But I'm sure I've convinced you. Now you probably want to know that if I'm not screaming, what am I expected to do? So let's move on to the next slide, and I'm going to tell you magic trick number 2. So here's magic trick number 2. Magic trick number 2 is breathing. Now breathing is really very important during pregnancy. We've taught you that deep breathing helps to keep your lungs healthy, helps to tone up your abdomen muscles. But during labor, breathing takes on a completely new role altogether. When you breathe during labor, it's a little different. It's not the way we breathe regularly, and therefore it helps to distract you. When I breathe, I provide oxygen to my body. I provide oxygen to my muscles. And a muscle which is well oxygenated will pain less. And finally, breathing provides oxygen to your baby. Picture this. What is the meaning of a contraction? A contraction means tightening. Your baby is inside the uterus, which is tightening. So every time there is a contraction, the baby is squeezed. Baby is fine. Baby enjoys this. Feels like a roller coaster ride, and it's very exciting. But along with the baby, the placenta and the umbilical cord are also getting squeezed. And this is definitely not good for the baby because the baby gets less oxygen. I'm going to ask you to do a little exercise with your friends. Go and ask 5 friends who've had cesarean sections in the last few months. Just 5. And ask them why they had a cesarean section. The general answer will be, because the baby was in distress. I had to have the baby out. Why would the baby be in distress? The baby's not seeing some horror films or getting scared or being injured in there. The baby has less oxygen. And this is really important. One of the major reasons for babies to have distress and mothers to have a cesarean section is just no breathing. So this is actually management of labor magic trick, and it's also avoiding cesarean section magic trick. Now, isn't that wonderful? 2 magic tricks in one. The only trick here is that you're going to do short breaths. If you see this picture, you have women with one hand on their chest and the other on their abdomen. You're going to make sure that you do chest breathing. Just light breaths which reach only the chest and not your abdomen. Small, slow flutters where you breathe in through your nose and you blow out through your mouth. You breathe and you blow. I'm going to also include a little video in these modules for you to take a look at what this breathing looks like. So don't worry if it looks a little scary, a little alien right now. You will surely get the hang of it. But remember, you need to make sure that you do this exercise regularly. If you do not practice, it will not work during labor. So practice every day. So there you go. The benefits of breathing. Magic trick number 2. It distracts you, provides oxygen to your muscles, provides oxygen to the baby, less chances of fetal distress, and definitely better pain management. Isn't this really worthwhile? Magic trick? Here's magic trick number 3, and this is asking you to visit the bathroom. Why do I need you to visit the bathroom? If you look at this picture, Just look at the organs which are in the pelvis. Right down there you have your rectum. This is where you pass your bowels from. Next to it you have the vagina. This is where you're going to pass the baby from. And right next to that you have the bladder, from where you pass urine. Remember, one of the pre-labor signs, you would have loose motions, diarrhea. That's because nature wants you to empty your bowels. If the bowels are empty, there's more space for the birth canal to stretch and the baby to come out much faster. I want you to visit the bathroom to urinate every 45 minutes to an hour once you're in labor. What does that accomplish? It's going to empty your bladder and you are going to give the birth canal some more space so that the baby will come out even more faster. Research has shown that just doing this, visiting the bathroom every 45 minutes to an hour during labor, can shorten your labor by about 20%. Isn't that fantastic? You may not be eating and drinking, but don't worry, you'll still be able to pass some urine. Little bit, few drops, it's just fine. If you're not allowed to visit the bathroom, ask for a bedpan. A lot of healthy moms find it ridiculous. How can I use the bedpan? I'm fine. But hey, don't do that. It's going to make your labor shorter by 20%. So there you go. Magic trick number 3. Visit the bathroom. And then I have magic trick number 4. Try to be upright. When you're upright, you're going to give your baby the advantage of gravity, and gravity will help to pull the baby down. Also, if you look at this picture, this is of a mother lying down. If the mother is lying down, the birth canal, as you can see, is tilted slightly upwards. So the baby has to actually make an upward climb to come out, which is obviously scientifically more difficult. Trying to be in an upright position will also help to speed your labor along and will make things move much more faster for you. The faster labor is, the less time you are in pain. Isn't that wonderful? And here you have magic trick number 5, and that is movement. When I say movement, I'm going to give you a simple day-to-day example. You have a really fat pillow and you've managed to put a really tight pillow cover on it. And now you're trying to get that pillow out of that tight pillow cover. What do? You're going to shake the pillow, you're going to pull the pillow cover, you're going to tug the pillow. You're doing some kind of movement, right? So here you have it. The uterus is the tight pillow cover and the baby is the fat pillow. If I want to get this baby out, I need to provide some movement. Don't be static. Don't just go sit on the bed. Do some movement. If you're allowed and your doctor permits you, walk around. Dancing is great as well. Dancing makes you sway your hips, and swaying your hips is just the right movement to jiggle the baby down. If your partner would like to dance with you, it's really comforting. Look at it this way. You're in labor, it's intense, you're anxious, you're stressed, and there you have your partner holding you in a warm embrace. You feel that you belong. You feel comforted, you don't feel alone, you feel protected. Your partner has easy open access to your back, and this will also make him able to rub your spine, rub your lower back, and make you feel a little bit more comfortable. So there you have it, 5 magic tricks. Don't scream, breathe, try and stay upright, urinate frequently, and bring in some movement. Well, so far we've been talking about birth, which is normal. But sometimes that may not really work out the way we picture it. You might have to have some form of assisted birth. The first among this could be a vacuum birth. Here you see a picture of a suction cup which is placed on the baby's head, pressure is applied, and then the baby is vacuumed out. This needs to be done if the baby is stuck in an awkward position or is in distress and needs to be birthed in a hurry, or if the mother is exhausted and can't push anymore. So there you go it. That's the first kind of assisted birth, a vacuum birth. Some doctors may also prefer to use a forceps for the birth. Forceps are like two tongs and they apply to the sides of the baby's head, and then the doctor will gently guide the baby out of the birth canal. Whether a forceps or a vacuum is used as an assisted birth method is again the choice, comfort of your doctor, and also just the position that the baby is in. It's really not possible for you as a parent to make that decision. However, you could discuss with your doctor in advance about your options and in what situations would a forceps and vacuum be used. Sometimes just changing the mother's position can actually help the birth to happen without the use of these instruments. The question that most parents have is, are forceps and vacuum harmful? Because we've probably heard horror stories about babies having some form of damage or the other. Well, the answer here is no. Your doctor is skilled at using these instruments. At times, as I said, it may be necessary to the birth because of certain conditions. What can you do? Remember to relax and leave your body loose, which will ensure that least pressure is applied and the baby is delivered without any difficulties. Sometimes it may be necessary to deliver the baby surgically. This can happen if the baby is not coming down, the cervix is not opening, whatever the reasons. Primarily, a small incision is made in your lower abdomen and the baby is delivered through this incision, as you can see in this picture. Your cesarean section could be planned or unplanned. Sometimes a section is planned because of the baby or the mother's condition. If we know of an existing condition and we know that it's safer for the baby to be delivered surgically, then your doctor might plan a surgery. Some of these things could be defects in the baby, a placenta which is covering the mouth of the uterus, a mother who has some other condition, or anything which the doctor finds a cause for concern. In this situation, your doctor will ask you to choose a date a few days before your actual expected due date. Since we are doing this as a plan and because of a maternal or baby condition, we don't want to have the risk of you going into labor. Sometimes when you go into labor and a cesarean section happens, this is called an unplanned cesarean birth. This could be due to fetal distress, failure to progress, that means the cervix refuses to open or the baby refuses to move down, or any other emergency, which could be the mother developing a fever or the baby exhibiting some symptom or the other which causes concern. In a cesarean birth, the same form of anesthesia as an epidural is used. In this case, it's called a spinal block. The baby is delivered through an incision in the lower abdomen. This entire procedure can take approximately 60 minutes from start to finish. So is cesarean a better choice? This is a question that a lot of people are asking now. Because it's so easy, it's so short, recovery appears to be so much faster, a lot of mothers are actually trying to see if they could opt for a cesarean section. If it's medically necessary, then definitely yes. You don't have a choice. Otherwise, in all other cases, no. Cesarean should not be a choice if a mother can have a baby vaginally. Whatever anybody says, recovery takes much longer and is painful. When you see our segment on postpartum care and recovery, you will realize that in a vaginal birth, moms are allowed to move around in just about an hour after the birth. But in a cesarean section, you're asked to be on your bed for the first 24 hours. Logically, recovery after a cesarean section is 24 times that recovery after a vaginal birth. Once a cesarean section, always a cesarean section. Your incidence of future cesareans increases. Probably this is because you have a scar, not just in the outer folds of your body, but also in the uterus. So your doctor in the future will not want to take a risk of you going into labor and causing any tension on the scar. Because you have a scar in the uterus, it increases the risk of fibroids. And fibroids will then again lead in more surgeries later, or discomfort, or pain, or excessive bleeding. You don't really want to get into that. And of course, it leaves a permanent scar. Even though it's small, even though it's called the bikini cut and it's low down in your groin, but it's still a permanent scar. So you don't want to scar your body. Let's try a vaginal birth because that's how women were meant to birth. Let's talk about some natural pain relief options. The first and foremost is relax. Do whatever it takes for you to relax. You could be telling jokes, you could be dancing, you could be listening to music, you could be watching your favorite comedy serial. Anything that can make you relax is something that you should surely try. Remember one more thing. You need to take people with you to the labor room whom you are completely relaxed with. I'll give you an example. If your mother wants to come along and she really tenses you, then you better leave her at home. Because during labor, you want positive people around you, people who make you comfortable, relaxed, and happy. Do your breathing exercises. I'm going to remind you again. You're going to watch the video in these modules on how to do your breathing exercises. And I need you to practice during pregnancy. I've had this a lot of times. Moms who come to regular classes or who practice regularly write a lot of positive stories about their labor and how breathing helped them. And moms who just learn it once and think that they're going to use it during labor, it doesn't really work. I'm going to show you a few techniques of massage as well, so you could try that. Imagery really means having positive images. It could also mean having a focal point and only thinking about that. It could just be a bug on the wall of your hospital room, or it could be the wallpaper pattern, or it could be your honeymoon. You could just have any positive image, anything that you can focus on. We'll also show you some acupressure points which could probably help. And then there are diversion techniques. So your husband needs to learn some different tricks to help to divert your mind during a contraction. Let's take a look at some massage techniques during labor. The normal area which most pregnant moms complain about is their lower back, because when a contraction hits, the general explanation is that it radiates from the back and then moves to the front. So these are two common positions of massage that you could use. Your partner can try doing kneading actions as shown in the first picture, or he could use the strong part of his palm and he could be doing circular movements, especially on your lower back, which can help you deal with any of the contraction pain. Just remember, when you're doing massage during labor, you need to use firm strokes. Don't use light, gentle strokes. Use firm strokes. Mom needs to feel reassured. Mom needs to feel that you are in control and in charge. So use firm strokes. Don't use light strokes. Another thing that you should remember about massage during labor is that during a contraction, don't let go. Once the contraction is gone, stop and take a break. Because during a contraction, massage can also act like a diversion for the mother. Sometimes moms may not be really comfortable with your massaging the back. She may not allow you open access to the back because of taking positions that she is comfortable in. So here you go. You have a dad trying to massage the upper back. Just the shoulders, help to relieve the stress, helps to direct and distract mom away from the labor that she is experiencing. So it's a great diversion technique. It feels good. It makes you feel useful, and it makes mom feel your presence during labor as well. So here you have a mom getting a massage on her abdomen during labor. Some moms love this. Because the contractions are happening in the abdomen area, gently massaging the abdomen can help to divert the mom. It can help to change her focus, and she's now thinking about your hands and not really the pain of the contraction. Whatever works. And it may not be the same thing which works throughout labor. You might have to keep changing your tricks and your tactics and your positions as well. Remember, in all this, mom might even turn around and tell you, "Don't touch me," and she wants you to leave immediately. Please don't be offended. It's just fine. Mothers, when they are in labor, can sometimes have really very weird reactions, and it's not something for you to feel upset about. You might try coming back in a little bit and seeing if her mood has changed. These are your uterine pressure points. Just the area between your thumb and your forefinger, and 4 fingers above your ankle bone. These are considered to be uterine pressure points by acupressure specialists, and massaging these points and applying hard pressure on these points during labor can help the uterus contract a little more. Why do I want the uterus to contract a little more? Because that is what is going to help to speed your labor along. So if all's not working, you could even try doing some acupressure. It's just one of the tricks that we're trying to teach you, natural methods to help you cope with pain during labor. Eating and drinking is also a question that a lot of moms have. Now, even though you may not really feel like eating a large quantity, but just not eating and drinking can also be stressful. It will bring your sugar levels down, you will get dehydrated, and obviously, because if you're dehydrated with low sugar levels, you're going to start feeling miserable. And if you start feeling miserable, what happens? You get stressed. And if you get stressed, what follows? Labor becomes longer, labor becomes more painful, becomes more difficult to manage. However, please do check with your doctor before you start eating and drinking. Keep sipping on water, or you can also suck on some ice chips. This will help to keep you hydrated. Because you're in labor, you're probably sweating and you're feeling hot. So the ice chips will help to cool you down as well. I have some nice little foods that you can sneak into your hospital bag. So try high sugar foods in tiny bits, such as glucose water, sweets, glucose biscuits, or yes, small pieces of chocolate. Eating large meals may cause vomiting and will also be risky in case you need an emergency surgery. So be wise and have little tiny snacks, but that should be logically chosen to give you high energy and good hydration. Remember, birth is a new beginning. Welcome it with positivity. It's bringing to you a new family member, a beautiful baby. This is something you've planned, something you've carried in your body for the last 9 months, something you've waited for, something you will cherish, something you are going to focus your entire life on. So why not welcome it with a complete positive note? I'm going to give you one more thought here. When your baby is a year old, you are going to celebrate the baby's first birthday with a lot of fanfare. Isn't birth the real birthday of your baby? So why do we look at this day with so much dread? Why not welcome this day with a lot of fanfare and a lot of celebration? Which brings me to the end of this presentation. I hope you've learned a lot about labor and labor management, and definitely a lot more than what you would have got from the regular books and other sources such as the internet and friends. One last word that I'd like to leave you here with is that when you are pregnant, you're going to be getting a lot of advice. It's good to keep your own counsel and good to trust your own instinct. I would really ask you to close your ears to all the little bits of advice that you're getting. because people love to share negative thoughts. People don't like to share positive things. So let's keep your thoughts positive and look forward to the new beginning that you're getting ready for. Thank you and have a great day.